Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
Hello, this is Nate the Mediocre.
And with Travis.
Hello, everyone.
And we are getting together tonight to talk about Rudyard Kipling's poem Greatheart, which is about, which happens to be also about Theodore Roosevelt. Before we do, as usual, I want to let everyone know, if you like my work, if you like what I do and want to help support on the channel, you can find me. You can support me at subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great. And also wanted to thank my top level supporters. That would be Ann H, JB14, and DeadMessenger. Thank you for contributing to the show. And having said that, looks like I will be reading our poem for tonight before we get started. So let me get that up on the screen for everyone.
I can read it so you don't have to redo it.
Either way.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay. Then, as I said, let me put that up for everyone. Here we go. And when you guys can see that?
I can see it.
Okay.
Theodore Roosevelt, as the interpreter then called for a manservant, is one great heart from Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Although this website says Pilgrim's Process, and I'm like, is that King James programming happening or what? It begins. Concerning brave captains, our age hath made known, for all men to honor, one standeth alone, of whom o'er both oceans both peoples may say, our realm is diminished with great heart away. In purpose unsparing, in action no less, the labors he praised he would seek and profess, through travail and battle at hazard and pain, and our world is none braver since Greatheart was ta'en. Plain speech with plain folk and plain words for false things, plain faith and plain dealing twixt neighbors or kings. Used and he followed, however it sped. Oh, our world is none more honest, now Greatheart is dead. The heat of his spirit struck warm through all lands, for he loved such as showed themselves men of their hands, and love as in hate paying home to the last. But our world is none the kinder, now Greatheart hath passed. Hard schooled by long power, yet most humble of mind, where aught that he was might advantage mankind. Leal servant, loved master, rare comrade, sure guide. Oh, our world is none the safer, now Greatheart hath died. Let those who would handle make sure they can wield his far-reaching sword and his close-guarding shield. For those who must journey henceforward alone have need of stout convoy, now Greatheart is gone.
Okay. Travis, would you like to start us off? Your first thoughts on this one?
Oh, sure. I can get us started. So first, I'm glad the version that you put up on the screen had a better setup of the start of the poem. Just sort of making it clear that it was about an honor to Theodore Roosevelt.
Did you want to, or shall I go?
Well, I guess I'm having a hard time finding exactly what to say, except that, I've always found Theodore, an interesting guy. And you know what? Why not? Let's let you start.
Okay, so I'll start in as lighthearted as fast as possible. I was considering when I was doing the cover image, for this poem, because when you put something up on YouTube, you want to make a cover image so that people that attracts people's attention. I was thinking about putting Kipling, a picture of Kipling and Theodore Roosevelt, and that would have been just like the battle of the manly mustaches. Um, Nate, I'm sorry, but they both have you outdone. Okay, I'm not saying yours is bad, but they're both at a higher class. Um,
It's less acceptable these days, and I would have way too much stuff stuck in it from my job. So yeah, I'm afraid I can't walrusize the way they used to.
but it's but yeah, when I was looking for a Kipling poem because I basically, when I have authors who I have a bunch of their poems, I try to space out how often I do them, and I was coming up to a Rudyard Kipling slot, and I didn't have one picked out. I'm like, well, it should be easy enough to find something. I was just flipping through the book, and I found one about Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm like, well, I obviously have to do this. Um, and so, because Theodore Roosevelt's just awesome. So, uh, yeah, he's just a fun and interesting character. Like you could write an entirely, like, if you took his own name off of it, you could write an entirely factual account of his life, and then people would read it and be like, no, this is like they wouldn't believe this was a real thing. They'd be like, come on, make this guy more realistic. So
Wait, hold on a minute. He had asthma, and so he got over asthma by essentially telling his body to knock it off with the not being able to breathe crap. Seriously?
um,
He was a sickly, weak person, and then he just beat his body into shape. Just was like, you know what? I'm gonna go live rough, and if it kills me, I die, or I'll get strong. Whatever. Yep.
he heard the Nietzsche quote, whatever does not kill you makes you stronger, can only make you stronger. And he's like, that sounds like a plan. everyone
Boy.
everyone else is like, well, if I make it through. And he's like, that's not a warning, or that's not a comfort, that's a plan.
Love me some
But
Theodore, man. I'll tell you what.
I will say another thing. Um, since Rudyard Kipling felt it uh, appropriate to quote Pilgrim's Progress as a lead-in to this poem, I'm thinking it's probably time for me to pull out my own copy and reread that before long. I have, but it's been a while. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to reread Pilgrim's Progress before long, because I feel like maybe I've forgotten some good parts. Um, or I could read Pilgrim's Progress Process,
Yes, Pilgrim's
which
Process.
Pilgrim's Processing, which is the sequel site to the King James Bible. Um, uh, to give
But yeah,
some to give some context to everyone out there for that, there is a real website called King James Programming, which they fed an Markov chain generator, an AI writing program. They fed it the King James Bible and a bunch of computer programming texts, and then they used that to generate new verses, quote unquote verses, um, and
it's
uh,
it's pretty funny.
And
thus we use the Boolean function to increase the sin of Israel.
and you will obey the Lord thy God, or thou shalt. But and not only is there the King James programming, but there's also another book which frequently uses quotes for that as epigrams, which hopefully Nate and another show contributor, Harry Selden, and I will be talking about before too long. But that's not tonight. Anyway, Pilgrim's Process. That too. Theodore Roosevelt, who basically wasn't supposed to become president. I think if I remember the story correctly, like it was one of those things where the Democrats had like a candidate that they were certain was going to win, and so the Republicans had to put up somebody. If I could have this wrong, but I think that's it. The Democrats had a candidate; they were sure they were going to win. The Republicans were like, well, we got to put up somebody, and they wanted to put up somebody whose loss wouldn't damage their future career. And so they put up Teddy Roosevelt, and then something happened to the other candidate, and Teddy Roosevelt won, and they're like, oh, crud. Now we've got him as president. What are we going to do with him? Nate, does that sound right? But I
don't know that part of the story, but I know he's usually makes the top 5 list of presidents. So,
I mean, my personal favorite story about him is when he was on the campaign trail, and someone shot him. 1912. In 1912, someone shot him, and the bullet actually went through his copy of the speech he was giving and like into his shoulder, and he examined, like he looked at the wound and he decided, you know what? I'm not gonna let a little thing like getting shot stop me from speaking. And so he went on to give his speech, his pre-planned speech for over an hour before he let them take him to the hospital. So that's the kind of guy this was.
It sort of stopped, like it wasn't his shoulder; he shot him right in the chest, and it was sort of the bullet was sort of nestled up against the lining of his heart. They said if it had gone like a quarter inch further, it would have actually ripped his heart open and probably killed him. Instead, he was like, indeed. Takes more than that to kill a bull moose.
So,
incidentally, he is running on behalf of his homebrewed third party, the Bull Moose Party.
But it's
So, judging from the first stanza, I mean, the implication is that he was actually well liked on the other side of the ocean as well.
At least in England, yeah. Because it's both oceans, both people, so it's not all people.
Right.
It's
although I don't
right. No, of course.
It's the 2 people that matter to Rudyard Kipling.
Well, okay, I think he. I think he liked India also.
He lived a lot of his life out in America. He came here and stayed here and did a lot of writing and living while he was here.
I mean, I think he liked India as well. So, that's
kind of like India, the place, but I mean, how much does he like the people? The British also liked India. That's why they ruled it for a few centuries. They're like, it's quite a nice place, Nigel. Indeed. I think we could civilize these brown fellows.
But concerning. Well, and also, I understand during World War One, Teddy Roosevelt was a firm supporter of England and when America got involved, the American war effort, which apparently was the context of his Hyphenated Americans speech, um, which you know I think that one's a if you're not familiar with that, he talks about the. I think I might have to just read that sometime for my channel, because it's also out of copyright. Um, but
100 years old or so, yeah, it makes sense.
he talks about hyphenated Americans and which is Italian Americans or German Americans or Irish Americans or basically blank hyphen American, and how anyone who is an American but has another identity attached to that, it's not really that much of an American. And I think he has a good point there.
I've always felt like Theodore Roosevelt, like his life is sort of like, the scaled down America. Starts off kind of like small and weak and needs, but through time and conflict and hardship, actually grows into something powerful, and then just breaks out and is uncontainable after that. And then eventually, later in life catches a virus and sort of winds down a bit, but still powerful, but diminished. I'm like, yep, that sounds like our nation. Like, he's just he's the most American man.
And let's see. I mean, and the qualities that are praised in this poem: brave, honest, kind, and protecting decent people. That's a pretty good description of a healthy masculinity, I think. But it's I also like the he loved such as showed themselves men of their hands. He loved working people. People whose lives and jobs were get out there, get down in the dirt, and make things happen. That's that's not a bad perspective.
Unlike many that we've had in our highest office, there was a mental disease that Theodore Roosevelt never managed to acquire. Theodore Roosevelt was never an intellectual. Was he an intelligent man? Yes. Was he quick? Uh-huh. But was he an intellectual? No.
If I remember correct, go ahead.
I think that's one reason that he was so successful in the things he did, is because he just kind of walked right past all of the sort of snobbery and was just like, yep, nope, this is what needs to be done. Let's do it.
If I recall correctly, like when he went on safari in Africa, which he did, I'm sure, a few times, like he had an actual library he brought with him, like a traveling library. So yes, intelligent and feeding the mind as well, challenging and strengthening his mind as well as his body. And I think that's a good way to live, and it's something to some extent I try to do myself. I'm not going to. I'm not going to, say I'm going to put myself at his levels, but I'm trying to keep both moving and both strong. So, um, I haven't yet been shot and given an hour speech afterwards, but you know, I'm only 40ish, so I've got another decade or so before. What age did that happen to him at?
That happened in 1912.
I'm not sure. I think he was.
He was over 50. So, maybe when I'm 50, 53 or something, I'll experience
in 1858. So 1908, he would have been 50 years old. 1912, yeah, he'd have been 54.
Yeah. So, maybe by age 54 I'll be that awesome. Wouldn't bet on it, but
I like how they, Kipling names him Greatheart. Because I feel like that is the biggest thing about him is he just approached the world like, he approached the world like, I'm gonna just do the thing, and I'm gonna do it with such heart that it's just like I'm gonna overcome. Oh, man, what a guy! But just I feel like Greatheart. If you had to like put a title on him, like you had to give him sort of a mythologized name, it's the perfect one.
It's
And it's another awesome parallel toward the country that birthed him.
So Travis, you've been relatively quiet. You ready to jump in yet?
Oh, I can try to offer something. I was looking right now at the. No, I lost it. The part about humble mind. Yeah, hard schooled by long power, yet most might advantage mankind. I don't know. He's always seemed to me to be kind of this, like you're saying about the great heart, like just kind of this fire, like just this fiery ball of unstoppable energy almost. And I don't know if I get that from, little clips of of him or, the things we see or what exactly. And it's curious because humble wouldn't necessarily be the first word that came to my mind about Teddy Roosevelt. Not to say that he wasn't, but his sort of bold, out there, rough and tumble, like humility come to mind. But he really did seem to be, a loyal servant, as it says. He really did. And it's been some time, but I read a book called The River of Doubt, which is about him and the expedition that he was a part of that went down a river called the River of Doubt in the Amazon some years after. It was a couple of years, I think, after he ran for president again under the Moose Party, his own created party, and lost. And he was quite depressed after he lost that election, and ended up going on this mission. But I mean, it comes out pretty clearly there, sort of his care for the people, that he was on the mission with, and his long suffering. He was very sick. They were sure he was going to die one night, and true to his form, he managed to survive. He was suffering from malaria like most of the rest of them, but his was pretty bad at that moment. And he was actually telling them, go on, leave me. Like he was telling them, and he had said that, from the you need to leave me. Like, but what's that?
You kind of broke up.
Oh. So he was, but hopefully you're catching this. But he was actually saying, like, on his deathbed, like, leave me, don't wait, just leave me. more so the idea that he finished the mission. And I really do think that was his sort of attitude.
This expedition, this mission, this idea is bigger than me. Oh, and I was double checking what I said earlier, and about his becoming president, and I was half right. Theodore Roosevelt became president when he was vice president, which, then as now is usually not taken that seriously unless the president actually dies, which President McKinley did after being shot. Because President McKinley wasn't Theodore Roosevelt, and so when you shot him, he actually died.
Although to be fair, Theodore Roosevelt apparently wasn't Andrew Jackson because he was shootable. Dude walked up on Andrew Jackson with 2 pistols. Click, 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 click. Andrew Jackson was like, "Really?" And whooped him nearly to death with his walking stick. When they took the guns off the guy, they walked down the street and were like, "These things not working?" Blah, blah. I guess these guns were just terrified of Andrew Jackson. Terrible president, but what a character.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson basically jumped on the guy and just beat the crap out of him with his cane until people pulled him off of him. Which
did you say he was a terrible president, Nate? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
because he makes the top 10 list in most historian surveys.
No,
Jackson makes the top 10 list. He did a lot
of stuff he ought not have done. It was pretty awful to a lot of people. I don't like him much, but he was, like I said, heck of a character, incredible character, but I do not like him much.
Fought the central bank.
Most people don't.
Which I think fighting the central bank is not necessarily a bad position.
But there are other things he did that he ought not have. The Trail of Tears comes largely to mind. He really set a precedent for treating Indians badly, like on the government scale.
The interesting thing is, though, that Abraham Lincoln wanted to do the same thing with the slaves. He wanted to send them all to Costa Rica. Nobody knows that, but in the early talkings, that was the plan.
Costa Rica or Liberia? Isn't that where Liberia?
But like Central, they were going to send them to Central America. What
Liberia is slaves that could leave and went back home and found their own country, where they then started keeping slaves. Like, yep.
You say they did? They went back to Liberia and kept slaves?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Slavery was legal in Liberia, the country founded by liberated slaves. Says a lot, doesn't it?
Well, we
tend to
inflict upon others what's been inflicted on us.
Yeah. Then there was Marcus Garvey back in like the 60s or 70s who had the Back to Africa movement and said it sort of fizzled because all of the people that were going to support him started looking at what Africa was like, and we're like, we would prefer to remain in America. Thank you, Marcus.
Be nice if they'd be a little more grateful about where they would prefer to be then, but that's getting...
Well, no, that would have been if they listened to, Booker T. Washington and decided to go on excellence, but instead our society chose to lionize W.B. Du Bois and his idiot grievance politics.
Anyway, off of presidential errors, we talked a good bit about. We talked a good bit about Teddy Roosevelt. Not a ton about this poem itself. And it's one thing I do like in this one. The closing stanza. Basically, now that it's a fascinating statement about his view of this character in the world. Like, this guy is gone. The world is a much worse place, and we need someone to step up into his role. But bloody hell, those are some big shoes to fill. Like, that is let those who would handle make sure they can wield his far-reaching sword and his close-guarding shield. And that's a great statement there. That is a great tribute, to this man. I think that Kipling put together here.
Yeah, and I think we have largely failed to have people that can, that can adequately wield this panoply that was given to them. And I like how it talks about that, because a lot of the impetus for America really getting out there and doing things, and instead of being, this continental, sort of agricultural backwater, this 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 isolated area of crazy people and Indians, is down to Roosevelt. He really brought us out on into the world, and we started taking our first steps there. He kind of helped get the Navy really kick-started out of a phase whenever it was like essentially a little gunboat frigate navy, and then he started getting us building battleships, and he had us ready to fight. And so he started us on the ascent that we would eventually climb to world dominance, and then and so through all that, he's the one that really made America a warrior nation. He's the one that, put all this into our hands to be like, okay, do great things. And, for 40 or 50 years, we did.
What was, there's actually, what is it? It was, the Spanish-American War, when America took control of Cuba. He took part in that. I don't think, here, wait, let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before his presidency, when he was a bit younger.
Yeah, right, he wasn't president, but but was instead, on the ground with. This was, for one thing, this was when, part of the U.S. Army was people rounding up a group of their friends and, saying, hey, we'd like to be part of this fight. And, the government saying, sure, here, have some guns and go there.
Here's some guns, here's some uniforms, and here's a train. Get after it. Are you trained? What's that? We all know how to shoot. Good enough. We'll send you some professional NCOs to teach you how to march.
And so, yes, Roosevelt and some of his friends, joined in that. And there's what is it? What's the name of that one? Dan Carlin has an episode on the Spanish-American War. And I wonder if I can find that quick. I should have had this up already, because it seems like an obvious thing to refer to.
There is while you're looking up that, there is actually it's like a duology kind of thing. It's called Rough Riders, and it stars like Tom Berenger. It's got Gary Busey and Sam Elliott in it, and it's about the formation and the the exploits of the U.S. First Volunteer Cavalry, and it is pretty great. And the characterization of Theodore Roosevelt in it is amazing. He shows up and he's just kind of like, laughing, just ebullient guy, and he's just like, and goes through everything, and just like that, just basically walks straight through, walks through walls, whatever. I'm gonna do the thing. I've done the thing, boy. He's so great. And then, and they follow all the way through the Battle of San Juan Hill, where the main thing kind of ends, and it's just like, yep, you know what, that guy was awesome. We needed us one of those, and I'm so glad we had one. I would suggest.
So
I would suggest to anyone watching this, because it's very good.
What's it called again?
Rough Riders.
Oh, it's actually called Rough Riders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in the hardcore history episode I was talking about, it's episode 49, The American Peril, which is now available for $3. And I believe the cover image for that episode, I think that is Teddy Roosevelt right in the center. I'm not 100% sure, but it's I think that's him. So because I mean, if you can, why not?
This is it right here. Except no substitutes.
So who's okay? Sam. So is Tom Berenger the one who's playing Teddy Roosevelt there?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Gary Busey is this old Confederate general they sort of round up to try and appease the South. Like, we're gonna have to move a lot of troops to the South, and so we need somebody they're gonna be okay with. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll take He's like, I'll take it, but I'm not just gonna be sitting around. I'm gonna be out there commanding. And so he's going around, like, just like zonked out of his mind from malaria, being like, yeah, we're whooping the hell out of these Yankees. And all his officers are young Yankees, and they're like, Cubans, sir? He's like, what? He's like, yeah, we got the federal run. He's like, Spaniard, sir. Whatever.
Well, there is the saying that generals are always trying to fight the last war. It's just sometimes a little more literally true than usual than others.
Like I said, I watched that when I was a kid, and I very much enjoyed it. And me and Rachel recently watched it together, and I was like, yep, there's some corn in this, but man, it's good.
Well, and to get back to the poem itself, and not just Teddy Roosevelt and general American history, in purpose unsparing, in action no less. That's a, like, again another of those moments of, like, that's a pretty solid tribute to someone. He has strong, determined purpose, and he's actually out there getting it done. He's not just, oh, I have these grand ideas and I'll start them and get 20 pages into my novel, and then it trails off and nothing ever happens with it, said someone who has never done anything like that himself. But in both having great purpose, great strong goals, and great plans in mind, and a will to go out and fight and make it happen. And that's another. It's both great writing and a powerful tribute to the man.
I think it's kind of funny that just like he did most things in his life, Teddy Roosevelt is completely overshadowing the poem that was written about him. It's kind of like, yeah, we want to talk about the poem, but then all we can talk about is Roosevelt, because I mean, what a dude.
I actually I have up here an article from what is the year of this? Because this is from 2008. I think this is one of the first things I read on the website crack.com when they were actually funny. I'm not sure when that stopped. It slowly trickled out
it was
somewhere.
taking a downturn around 2010. I can tell you that. Like when I was graduating college, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, some 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, I realized, you know what? They're not really funny at all anymore. And it wasn't any one moment, it was a slow decline. But at their peak, Cracked managed to be both hilarious and often strangely informative. And this is one of those, which is the five most badass presidents of all time.
Andrew
And
Jackson.
Andrew Jackson wait, where is he? Is Andrew Jackson? Andrew Jackson is number 5, actually.
I think
So
that's
he's
actually
on the
where I got
list.
the whole spiel about the guns were afraid of Andrew Jackson was from that article. Now that I think about it, Abraham Lincoln has to be up there for being a
But
wrestling prodigy, super strong whip man.
but yeah. So Teddy Roosevelt is on this list. Let's see. It wasn't just he strolled through the White House with a pistol on his person at all times. Though with his black belt in jiu-jitsu and history as a champion boxer, it wasn't like he really needed it.
The Secret Service was to save you from the president. An assassin rolled up on Teddy today. Oh, God. How'd that go? That man has so many broken bones.
In Soviet Russia, Secret Service protects you from president.
Not gonna lie, you know what? I would like to see Teddy Roosevelt in his prime get in a fight with Vladimir Putin in his prime. Let's do this thing.
Okay. When I invent the time machine, I'll arrange that one. Maybe I will put that one up as I'll see if I can set that up on AI Dungeon. Are either of you familiar with that?
No.
It's okay. It's basically it's on this website. It's a text adventure game where it tells you a story and you type in things to respond. Except it's coming up with it as it goes. It's artificial intelligence generated, and so you can make up any story you want and have the compute. You can make up the beginning and then have the computer, basically tell the story with you. And I have one on there. I actually have one that I made into a video, although I only have that. I didn't put that one up on YouTube. That one's only on BitChute and Odyssey because I didn't think YouTube would be happy with it.
I remember that story.
Yes. The plan was I was going to go back in time and kill Hitler, which is the obvious thing. Like everyone thinks of that. But see, the thing people don't think about is I was going to impersonate Hitler and replace him, because if you just kill him, someone else is all too likely to do basically the same thing. And so I was going to kill Hitler and then impersonate him and replace him and be really nice to the Jews was the plan. It didn't go well.
Yeah, that's the problem. When you start favoring one group over another based solely on the fact that they're a part of that group, you end up with problems.
So maybe I should set up another one of those in which I go back in time and kidnap a young Teddy Roosevelt and a young Vladimir Putin and set up a boxing match.
It'd have to be MMA. I mean, just boxing isn't fair to Putin, to be honest. Although he's not used to fair contests. Yeah, he's used to being on the upper hand of a very unfair one. But yeah, he's going to have more sort of like grappling and those kind of skills. So it'd be interesting to see, the striking and grappling techniques of Roosevelt versus the sort of integrated self-defense techniques of a trained Spetsnaz operator.
Okay. Well,
So back to the poem.
yes. Go ahead.
I was going to point out the line, in love as in hate, paying home to the last. I mean, that deal for what was right. Whether it was something he loved or hated, he seemed to really have a fervor and be willing to say, what he thought and to speak on its behalf, whether it be to praise or to put down.
Not not holding his mind, not not being carefully diplomatic. Just, well, this is what I think. You don't like it?
And I think
okay, let's fight.
Yeah. And I think the next line is interesting to follow that idea. But our world is none the kinder, now great heart hath passed. So despite his manliness or brusqueness or plain talk, there was a kindness, that extended into the world from him through that somehow, is what seems to be said there. It's an interesting thing to contemplate.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the idea that you don't have to be nice to be kind. Niceness is usually just, this craving for accommodation with other people, which often is, and frankly, is often a sign of cowardice. Just like, I'm just going to be nice. I just want to be nice. If all you strive to be is nice, well, you're weak and ineffectual, and you are no Roosevelt. But even he, who like I said, pull out his gat and blast you or beat you down to a puddle. It doesn't matter if he's on. If you need help, he's going to help you. If you need fought, he will fight you. But in the end, he doesn't have to be nice. He just has to be honest and good.
Yes, and that's one theme I've hit on a few times on this channel, and will return to it I'm sure many times more. Nice is not the same thing as good, and as Christians, I challenge you to find anywhere in the Bible God tells us, go be nice.
No, said good is not necessarily nice, and nicety is no virtue.
So, I think I've said about as much as I need to about this poem. Travis, is there anything else you would like to add on here?
Oh, nothing's jumping out at me so much.
Well, it is about Teddy Roosevelt, so he might jump out at you if you're not.
Well, I think
guard.
he has I think he's kind of jumped out at the whole thing. It's funny how the poem, it's this tribute to him, but it doesn't seem to. I mean, Nate sort of brought this up earlier. It doesn't seem to have a real life of its own, if that makes any sense. And maybe because it's pointing to him. I don't know. It's an interesting tribute, for sure.
A good tribute makes you think of the person. And so, you read this and it's like, yep, this is so Roosevelt that all I want to do is think about Roosevelt now and talk about it. An old Theodore being just this freaking boss. And so I think it's very effective as a tribute. It's very good on its own. It's high quality. But what it does more than anything is it brings to mind episodes of his life and who he was. And when the person you're paying tribute to is Theodore freaking Roosevelt, you got to kind of figure there's going to be a whole bunch of shadow that your monument will be laid in just by the bigness of the character.
Okay, Nate, any last thoughts from you on this one?
I was watching Deadliest Warrior, and they were doing Theodore Roosevelt versus Lawrence of Arabia, and they got to talking about the knives that they like. So I was like, okay, I know when they do the simulation, It's going to come down to a one-on-one fight between Roosevelt and Lawrence of Arabia. And if they think that the freaking jungle tramping, bear fighting, Spaniard shanking Roosevelt is going to lose to a goddamn marathoner in a knife fight, yeah, right. And sure enough, he like cut him in half with his Bowie knife, and I was like, American.
So, what knife did Lawrence of Arabia like?
He favored a Persian dagger. Very beautiful knife, but I mean, it ain't no Bowie.
Is a Persian dagger curved similar to a scimitar?
I believe this one was, yes. They
Okay.
have different kinds, but this particular one was a bit more finely bladed and curved. I'm like, okay, that's nice, but Bowie knife stabs just as well, and it can chop your hand off.
Well, if I understand correctly, the scimitar style, they're great for slashing, but they lose stabbing, or they're not nearly as good at stabbing as a straight sword.
It is a bit more difficult because you got to kind of deal with the curve going in, and it's a bit hard to get the force into the point. But they do okay. But yeah, I mean, a scimitar is a sort of usually sort of a cavalry style weapon, so it's made to be wielded. Come by, chop the guy, just chop him wide open, and then keep going. If you're going to be
cavalry, cavalry with a sword is not going to want to go for a direct stab. That would be a bad plan. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's akin to the just different cavalry sabers from around. You can fight with them on foot, but you're better off with other things.
Okay, well, then, like I said, I think we've covered this one pretty well. So thank you both for joining me tonight. Thank everyone out there for watching, and God be with you.
Also with you.